Ready in three, two, and one.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Achieving Unity Success Formula podcast. We have a special guest today. It's going to be so exciting. As I think all of you know, I am Mark Intrican, and as you see on the screen right now is our gift to you. Not only do you have a greater gift coming up with Robert here shortly, but we do have the Achieving Unity Guide. So if you look at the QR code on the left, that will take you to our guide. The QR code on the right will take you to our blog, which shows all of the newsletters that we publish twice a month. So we'd love to have your feedback. This is our weekly podcast number 37. We are moving since October of last year. It's been very exciting. And I hope if you don't already have it on your calendar, please put this as a recursive calendar invite every Wednesday. Be able to come on, ask questions, share. Love to hear from you. Reality focused dynamics and success focused solutions. To find out more about our website, please go to the home, check QR code on the left, and then the contact me. If you'd like to contact me about anything, ask questions on coaching, consulting, workshops, keynote speaking, please use that QR code on the right, contact me, or just go to markintrican.com/contact. I'm looking forward to talking with you. As mentioned in the logo, reality focused dynamics equals success focused solutions. When we are reality focused, we can be success focused because we know what's going on. We know what's reality and not just perception. We talk about proven, compassionate strategies that turn conflict of any kind, into lasting harmony at home, at work, and in every relationship that matters. Are you or somebody you know that is frustrated by tensions or arguments? Our 7 step roadmap gives you the tools to move from any form of conflict to the collaboration that you want to see quickly and confidently. If you're craving for stronger trust, craving for stronger connection, discover the communication tactics that build respect, repair relationships, and unifying teams and families alike. We can transform that conflict into connection, together achieving unity. Unity inspires homes, it shapes society, and it transforms workplaces. We can't do it alone. Everything we do, we work with someone else. We help you turn frustration into understanding. Too many times we may have heard the words from ourselves or others, what the frustration? We need to find value, and we can, in our actions instead of reacting in anger or frustration or disconnection. We show that anger holds no value. Anger has absolutely no value. Anger, ANGER, stands for actions, not gaining effective results. That's all anger is. It's just actions that not gaining effective results. There's no value to it. Life does happen. We know that in every relationship, from personal to professional, from parenting time to partnerships, in the bedroom, in the boardroom, in every room in between. We show you how to embrace challenges and encourage a more inspired and inclusive future. That's EII, encourage, inspire, and include. You read more about that if you go out to my blog. Read my newsletters. One vision, one goal, achieving unity in every area of life. Their call to action, our call to action. Let's ditch the drama. Let's get stuff done. We'll show you how to turn your life from what may seem like a dumpster fire into a well oiled machine. Achieving unity is the path to stronger relationships, inspired leadership, and lasting change. I can help you with any kind of coaching, consulting, courses, keynote speeches, or workshops. Please contact us today. You can use your QR code down at the bottom, website there on the left, or call me at 303 Focused, Reality Focused, 303-362-8733. Looking forward to hearing from you. Starting in August, we have our 7 Steps to Achieving Unity Success Formula. Because achieving unity does not just solve problems, it builds those bridges to possibilities. It encourages every person's growth by replacing criticism with compassion. It inspires the change through hope, not pressure, because every step forward matters. It includes every voice, so no one feels unseen, unheard, or unworthy. When we replace disconnection with empathy and frustration with understanding, we create a space for trust, collaboration, and a shared purpose. This is how we thrive together, achieving unity. Our next podcast coming up. Now, all of June, all 4 podcasts are about dads, fathers, and parenting. It's about the dads and how they parent today, which may be much different than when you or I were young and how our parents treated us. But we'll start with Michael Olson on the silent epidemic, some epidemics that go on behind the scenes. Please come back on next week on the 4th. Learn more about that silent epidemic. Coming up on the 11th, Sean Yesner, the widowed parent. How does it feel, especially with fathers out there, as a widowed parent? What do you do? How do you handle those things? Please come back. We'll break into some detail, talk about how to handle those situations. Keith Schumacher, father friendly. He works with schools, organizations everywhere because too many times Father's Day is not that important. Too many times fathers are not brought into the school system. It's always the mother. Fathers feel out of place. Let's bring the fathers in. Let's make sure those dads know they are welcome. Then Alan Stevens, he comes in on international profiling and as a communication specialist to help us with dads and fathers and communication. And then on the Wednesday before the 4th of July, Independence Day in the United States, Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman will be here. He'll talk about the price of freedom and honoring the cost of independence, what we paid for in the United States through the wars to give us the independence that we have today. We just celebrate Memorial Day in tribute to those who fought for our freedoms. Lieutenant Grossman will come in and tell us more. So please put us on your calendar. We're here every week, every Wednesday. Looking forward to seeing you, talking to you more today, but definitely seeing you again next week. And today, quite an honor, a close friend of mine. It's a great opportunity for us to be able to talk and share some questions and answers we will today, because Robert Butwin is the power connection that you've been waiting for. If you're going with power, if you're going to go with the way to win, you want to go with Robert Butwin, the street smart strategist. He's an elite networker. He's an entrepreneurial strategist, author of Street Smart Networking. Robert is the architect of influence and the quiet force behind some of the most impactful collaborations in business today. A Hall of Fame entrepreneur with over 35 years of global experience, Robert has mastered the art of building high-level relationships that lead to real results. He's a best-selling author of Street Smart Networking and a sought-after speaker known for transforming vision into velocity. With a rare blend of entrepreneurial insight, intuitive matchmaking, and strategic foresight, Robert helps thought leaders, business builders, and change makers amplify their visibility, their credibility, and their connectivity. Would you please help me in welcoming Mr. Robert Butwin? Hey, Robert, how are you today?
Hey, Mark, every day is an amazing day. Every day when I'm with you because of the relationships that we have, you know, developed and developing from networking.
Yes. It is so great working with you and the things that you have done. And I just appreciate knowing you and being able to work with you in all that we do. It's tremendous. And I think as you have said before, our success are those that we hang around and those that we build, our friends, our relationships, and that sharing, I think opens up so many, right?
I put that in my book that, your relationship is the average income of your 10 closest friends. But it goes beyond income. But yes, the right people can definitely elevate you as the wrong people, if you're in the relationship with those kind of people, can take you down.
That is so true. And that's one of those two. I think it was Jim Rohn told me about that back in the 80s. And he said that that was the same words that you're saying, that your closest friends, you're pretty much the average of your five or 10, maybe it's your three closest friends. And I like what you're saying because of your income. It matches so well and what you're doing. Thank
Well,
you, Robert.
you're welcome. I found it to mirror in relationship to the quality of people you hang around with. I originally learned it from Harvey Mackay, who is a 70-year friend of our family, who wrote a couple different books. One of them, the one that he's most famous for is Swim with the Sharks, but the other one that I think is more relevant for networking, and when I talked to him 3, 4 years ago, he sent me a copy of it, is Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. So the key
Mm,
in everything that we do in business and life, no matter what it is the relationships that we develop.
that is, I that is so true. The more, and as I work on it with, like Dave mentioned earlier, achieving unity, we can't do this alone. It's the people that we work with that helps us achieve that greatest value. And as you mentioned, the 10 people that you're around the most, who you work with the most,
Yep.
identifies that value, right?
Definitely. One of the words I learned back, oh, 88 or somewhere around there, synergy, which is, you know, people working together are greater than individuals. The synergy of, where 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2. And I love the acronyms, and I think you know that I love acronyms. And to me, the acronym
Yeah,
of team which is together, everybody achieves mastery. And it's developing the team of people around you that's got some kind of a common vision, and that are working together with a common goal in relationship to what they're looking to accomplish.
so true. I like that too on team. Everyone's mastery, achieving the greatness that that everyone deserves. It means anyone and everyone. That is so true. You've had quite a journey, Robert, with the things that you've done and what you've accomplished. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in network marketing and then in entrepreneurship? And what a what a journey.
It has been a very interesting journey now that I'm on, so to speak, on the other side of the playing field. But one of the things I learned about the journey is everything serves you. Not, you might not realize that as you're going through that journey, but my journey, our family started the high school war cheerleading Jacobuses in the 1930s, 1938. Oldest son, third generation, always expected to run the family business. Problem was, too much family in the family business, so it was my family. So I came to the realization that I had to make a change back in 1983, 84. I graduated from the University of Minnesota. I sort of got education shoved down my throat. I took the path of least resistance. So once I came to the realization that I had to change direction, and sometimes it's a synchronicity of things that happen. Came across a cassette tape series by Wayne Dyer, How to Be a No Limit Person. And
Yes.
so I started to realize that the limits that existed in my life, I was responsible for them. being there. So a lot of it goes back to taking that responsibility for the life you want to create. And I can remember around the same time that I came across Wayne Dyer's cassette tape series, I met a lady that ultimately I ended up marrying. We've been happily married for 40 years. But as I was
Oh,
starting off,
congratulations.
thank you. As I was starting off in my journey, we were walking one day before we got married, and I turned to her and I said, "There's nothing or nobody that's going to stop me from succeeding." A lot of it goes back to your intention. The fact that you've got this vision of what you want to accomplish, the intention. Are you really committed and serious about creating whatever it is that you want to create? As your listeners are listening to this, it starts with that vision and the intention and the relationships that you're going to surround yourself with.
That is so beautiful. It's that intention that we all, I think we don't think about it enough. As I talk about our priority, right now, this is our top priority. Whatever we're doing at any moment, it is our top priority. That's just the way life works. If we're going to the beach is our top priority. If we're cooking dinner is our top priority. And we don't think about that enough with the things we do or don't do. If we're watching television is our top priority. And so those things that we do, those intentions that we put in front of us, right? That's what we're intending to do. The value we receive from that is we based on what we're thinking, our intentions, right?
Yeah, 100% agree. And part of, when I met Harvey, and this is an old cliche, but he told me back in 83, 84, that your net worth is in direct relationship to the value of your network. So my top priority, was to develop meaningful relationships at as fast as possible. So that's always been my priority then throughout my whole journey to where I am today. I'm still actively involved, not necessarily because I have to be, but I have to be. Have to be because, again, part of, your priorities switch. When I started my journey, my priority was making enough money. I didn't have to worry about money anymore. You know, I think about 2, 3 years ago, I was in a breakout room and somebody asked the guy that was running the room, he says, "What's the meaning of life?" And the guy, without thinking, basically said, "To live a life of meaning." So my priorities switched from money motivated to purpose motivated. So my top priority is to be of value. Whenever I have the opportunity to have a one-on-one, whenever I have an opportunity to be on a podcast, make sure it's never about me. Because if you take me and flip it out upside down, it's we. It's the relationships that you're involved with.
You have so many good quotes and acronyms that you're talking about. Turn the me upside down. It's we. That is so true. And then what you also mentioned about your net worth is your net work. So who you're working with. Again, back to what you were saying earlier, your 5 closest friends, your 10 closest friends, that is the people that you work with. That is your network, right?
Definitely. And, I mean, everything changed as of March of 2020. And everything that I did before then, it was for the most part in-person networking. Now it's online on Zoom. You and I met on Zoom, but a
That's right.
couple of the people that I've met, and quite often you're at the JV directory, and you see I'm usually always get high spot visibility there and amongst everything. But some of the people I'm working with, one of them is James Feldman. I think I've introduced you,
Hmm.
and he's helped some very large companies um, increase sales volume over $3 billion. He taught me 3D thinking. So every time that I start off and I, go into a one-on-one, I think of 3D thinking to understand the depth of what's going on in their world, the distance from where they are to where they want to be. It's never about me, and the determination of them to create it. And I focus on being of value. You know, something I learned a long time ago. The more I give, the more it comes back to me. Givers gain. Going back to what BNI made famous, but I've found that to be so true.
That's right. Givers gain because when you give to others, you gain so much for yourself. I don't think we catch on to that enough that giving is so important. I know I need to do it more to be able to give more, to gain more, because what we're gaining is so much value in what we do and in how we do it. But now tell me, Robert, what inspired you to write your book? That street smart networking is a part of what we're talking about now, but what got you started writing that book?
Well, somebody approached me because I was very successful in as an entrepreneur. And they
You have
said,
been.
yeah, and they said, if you wrote a book, and I had a ghostwriter, and so in fact, my ghostwriter was Bob Berg's ghostwriter, same ghostwriter, and I realized that it would allow me to have higher recognition, number one, but more importantly than that was, I wanted to put my wisdom in a complete digital form. So it was easy to pass out or pass to other people. Now, most people when they write a book think it's going to be an income producing activity. That's not necessarily the case. I mean, yes, some people make a lot of money writing a book, but I found it to save me time. I can pass it on. Now, it did get me on certain stages. It got me more international recognition, so it was profitable from that perspective. But I really did it more to putting my wisdom into a finished form and being able to pass off to other people.
That's a great idea. I've been working on a book now for 3 years, and I over edit maybe the ghostwriter concept that you're working with or you use. Maybe it's something I need to think about because it's such a value to be able to give that, can put that together and be able to share it with others, right?
Well, the answer is the reason why, yes. But today, if I had to rewrite it, I wouldn't use a ghostwriter. I would use AI. Without a doubt. Now it's still my writing. I write it and I just put it, first of all, the key in AI is you need to let it know who you are from your perspective. You've got 1,500 words to tell it who you are, but I would write it, I would put it into AI and say, can you make this better? If I don't like the changes, or, one way or the other. There's so many things that AI can help us as entrepreneurs take what we're doing to a whole nother level.
It is. It is. And I'd like to get that book completed and actually have my goal to have it completed by the end of June. So June's only a few days away. So I need to start looking at that. I use AI a lot, but I know a lot of times it does too much. And there's always that question, is AI helping you or writing for you? And I want to make sure that it's just helping me with the line items. And I use it a lot of times when I don't want to write something and I may write a paragraph, maybe a few sentences, and it's not coming across clear. I will go to AI and I use 5 different ones, but I will go and ask it, is this making sense to you? Because AI will carry a conversation on with you.
Oh, I mean, we look, and I learned this from James. AI is your uh, accelerated innovation for your business differentiation. It's still got the human touch. It's not going to do everything for you, but there's so many things it can do to help you position yourself in the way that you want to position yourself. But again, everything's still about that human relationship. So, you know, I'm very grateful for AI. I mean, I use Grammarly all the time. Beforehand, I would have to call my wife and she would have to come over and disturb her, and she was really good at grammar. But now I can just write something and, it, anyhow, that's a whole other area.
Whole nother book to live about. Yeah, when I teach at the University of Denver, and we use Grammarly in there to help us teach and help us in grading. It's a good package. But well, back to your street smart networking. What what are some of the messages that you were hoping to send in your book, Street Smart Networking? What's some of your major messages that you were sharing with others?
Well, that was back then, and there was really good insight, and I got a lot of good feedback, but I've evolved since then. So let's take a look at, I mean, I believe that ultimately for anybody that wants to accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. You talked about success as your introduction. And there was a movie I watched a long time ago. It was called A Knight's Tale. The two key parts of The Knight's Tale are his father told him, son, you can change your stars. Because of the fact, back when that movie was filmed, to be a knight, you had to be born into nobility. And then it's the activities that he did. So I got another acronym for you, which is REACH. If you're looking to reach the next level, whatever it is that you're in the process of doing, the R is your reputation. Mark, you've got an amazing reputation. I focus on making sure my reputation and my congruent from what I say and what I do. The E is the experience that people have when they're in your presence. A, are you authentic and are you an authority as it relates to what it is that you do, which you are and I am? So the C, and this is really what people are looking for, is certainty. And you, as a professional speaker, a lot of it is your clarity and your communication, a bunch more C's. And then
Thank
the
you.
H in reach is helpful. Were you helpful when you're having whatever relationships, your communication? Because what people are really looking for today is hope. Another acronym, hope is helping other people elevate by empowering them, sharing your wisdom. When we pass, we can't take it with us really. I mean, unless you've put it in a digital form. So I figure that, in this life, I want to play full out. I want to be of value wherever and whenever I can.
That's excellent. I like to hear you say that. And your acronyms are so helpful because they make it easier to remember. When we say an acronym, such as hope or anger, it helps us remember what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think it gives us value going forward to what we're doing, that when we say it, it ignites us maybe just a little bit, starts that fire, right?
Yep.
Yes.
And we're saying it because we want the other person to get it and remember it. And that's really why, again, it's never about me, it's about the other person.
It is. Okay. Well, let me ask you something quickly. On your screen, you've got a Zoom ID, you got a time on the screen. Tell us more about your podcast.
Sure. It's actually an edu networking event and it's called You Better Change. Originally, we started it off as Better Change, but a lot of the times the people that we were dealing with, and it goes back to Harvey's book, Swim with the Sharks. There's unfortunately a lot of sharks in the water. And so we wanted people to realize, and we started to change the name, the time to You Better Change. It's really an edu networking event for PhDs of entrepreneurs that care. Now, PhD is prosperous, helpful, dedicated entrepreneurs. And it's all
Oh,
designed around helping people with some very bright people. James is there, Tom Gay is there, who created Engage Pro. He's grown 4 different companies. And it's all designed around being of value to other people because there's so much misinformation without getting political or anything else like that. It's like you're seeing different messages, contrary different messages every day as you're looking at MSN or any of these news broadcasts. So we wanted to have clarity and communication. We want to focus on what we can do to help more people create the success that they deserve. One of the biggest things my initial mentor told me is attitude of gratitude. Be grateful for where you are as you're going to where you deserve to be. We're all, one of your first question about my journey, we all have different experiences. And one of my other mentors, mentioned experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. Are you using that as a stepping stone to make sure that you're going to accomplish the things that you want to accomplish?
that is so true. And you said so much there, but when you don't get what you want, that experience, that education, that knowledge, as long as we don't repeat it. And there are a lot of quotes that are out there that may or may not be given by the people, but what is it, Einstein, and given the credit for that one that says um, about insanity by doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results? One of his that talked about that because people don't learn when they make mistakes. And as you're saying, when they do something and they may not get what they wanted, but if they learn from it and do something different, they can build. grow to another level, be better at what they do, where if they're doing the same thing over and over and expecting it to improve somehow, they're pretty much off track, right?
Yep. It's sort of when I started off, another person I listened to, Dr. Robert Anthony, Beyond Positive Thinking. He said something similar of what you just said. There's certain lessons we're supposed to learn. Until we learn that lesson, life will continually trip you up in that lesson. So it's like my wife and I quite often will take a look at something. We do something and it doesn't come out the way we want. She says, we haven't learned that lesson yet. We get, again, we don't get angry about it. We just realize, one of these days, sooner or later, we're going to learn that lesson.
That's that's a great attitude. That's good to have that you can do something like that and say, didn't learn our lesson yet, did we? That's a great attitude to keep going. That's awesome. And you're so good with these acronyms, and you've been doing this for quite a while. You've been in this field for what, over 35 years? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I haven't worked a job since September 7th, 1990. I'm psychologically unemployable, but back in the beginning stages, and I remember going in one of the lessons for anybody and everybody that's listening or will be listening. Like I had a guy had a demonstration. He had a glass of Coca-Cola in one hand, a pitcher of water in the other, and he starts pouring a pitcher of water into the glass of Coca-Cola. The more water that went in to displace the Coca-Cola became lighter and lighter and lighter. So when I started my journey, because of the fact that I was committed for success, I started to change my mindset by reading the books, listening to the cassette tapes and CDs, attending the events. And I know you know how important that is because it built my belief system. And that's part of why, it's just, it's who I am today. So,
Yeah, that's beautiful. Let me toss something in here just quickly because I'm hearing a lot of thunder outside around me. If we lose me, if you lose me for a second, I'll come right back. But I do hear the storm, and I saw my screen flicker a little bit ago. But so if you lose me, just keep on going. I'll be back shortly. But again, back to the time that you've been doing this and that great smile that you keep on your face. What's keeping you motivated and passionate after all this time?
I tell myself, even, the words that we say matter. And so even as little as, how are you doing? I don't have the luxury to say, okay, I'm amazing. Life is great. The words matter. So what motivates me, um, world, I believe in living that life of meaning. And again, and I know you know this parable about the starfish thrower. I made a difference to that one. Every day, if I show up, by whoever I might synchronistically meet, and I'm able to somehow have a positive influence on other people by some kind of insight, acronym, whatever I might share, connect them to somebody. Now, obviously, we've all got our boundaries. Like one of the guys that I met, and unfortunately, we had two different times to meet. He didn't show up in either one. Um,
Ah,
there's certain times that people self-sabotage, and I'm not there to sit back and criticize and one way or the other, but that's why it's so important to make sure because the little things make the difference. So what motivates me is that at the end of my life, whenever that might be, and as I reflect back and know that I've lived the life that I was proud of that I lived. And it's not about how much money I make because you can't take it with you, but it's the impact and the influence you have in a way that made a difference with others.
no, that's beautiful. That's so great how you do think about others almost constantly. And then you've got a couple of writings, and we talked about your street smart networking. Then you have another title, Street Smart Strategist. What does that mean?
Well, I look at myself as a strategist because, running our family business, before I got into entrepreneur full time, I ended up running a nightclub with no experience of running a nightclub. I've always for whatever reason, I found myself in some kind of a leadership role. Going through college, I ended up creating IM sports teams and recruiting the right people, and we came in second overall, that one my senior year of all the teams out there. So, as a strategist, I look at myself more of a solutionist. Now, as I say that, there is no such word. And the only reason I know there's no such word is sent it in to become a corporation back when I didn't know that I didn't know. And they sent it back to me. They said no such word. But a strategist is figuring out how somebody can get from where they are to where they want to be, going from here to there. And the difference from here to there, sort of like, we to me, it's just one letter difference at the beginning of the word. Here, you add a T, you got there. Or where, sometimes it's just a little difference. And I look at myself being wise because I've, consistently actively involved at a high level. And so I'm learning through that experience, plus my mastermind. I've got people around me anytime I don't know anything that I can turn to get different perspectives. So my whole
Mm.
focus is helping people accomplish what they want to accomplish where I can do it. And if I can't do it, I'll guide them to somebody that can.
That's great. And again, Robert, like you're saying, that strategist, that strategy part of it, that for us to be able to have a strategy, have a thought process, to know in that strategy, where are we going to go next? What is our next step? And from what I'm seeing, everything that you do, it shows up in your work. Being the strategist, street smart strategist, the street smart networking, you not only write about it, but you exercise it on a day-to-day basis.
I live it. In fact, 2 days ago, I was in a breakout room and a guy comes in late. We had already done the introduction, and one of the guys that had done an introduction, the guy that came in late, I saw the perfect fit for the two of them to possibly collaborate. So I suggested it. The guy that came in late, he says, "That's just Robert being Robert." It's just a way of being. I mean, I've just, you get into the habit of continually thinking that way, and it just comes natural.
That's beautiful. If it's something like that to come natural, there's so many of us, so many people that I think, would love to have to learn that ability in what they're doing. Because someone like you and the depth that you have, Robert, and all the things you do, being that strategist, being that networking, and I think too, you've worked across the US, you worked in Europe, you worked in Asia. You also have a lot of global experience that has shaped your approach to helping people also.
Correct. Yeah, I've been on stage a couple different times in the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia,
Wow.
Budapest. I've been asked to, assuming that my co-sponsor gets his act together, to run a event later this year in India. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but um, you get to, going back to the reach, that reputation, and that's why it's so important to show up authentically and be of value, and people, recognize that and realize that.
There's so much to what you're saying. I think that word value is so important, and I don't think it's used enough. I even have the domain called Where's the Value? Because too many times people are asking that and they don't know for themselves where's the value. But I think what you're sharing with us and that knowledge and depth that you have, again, with big networking, that ability to touch other people and reach other people, builds a lot of that value. Well, tell me this, and of course, I know you quite well, and I'm always honored to be with you and listen to you. But for someone that's just hearing you say today for the first time, how would you describe what you do for them? And maybe some simple terms. Somebody's just hearing you today, haven't heard from you before. From simple terms as best you can, how do you describe yourself?
Goes back to what I said earlier. I'm going to get in the box with them, and I'm going to ask, tell me what you do, what you're doing to expand what you're doing. And if they don't have any clue of what they're, what they're really doing, then I'll focus on what do you really like to do? I've got to understand the other person by asking the right questions. I don't have a list of 15, 20 questions that I'm going to ask them, and then you want to take a look at what kind of resources, not money necessarily, but if you're telling me you want to do this, how many hours are how many hours are you going to do that? What kind of a network do you have? What are some of your valuable connections? So as a strategist, I've got to take a look at the different pieces of the puzzle and figuring out which of the pieces go together and how I can possibly share some perspective, insight, wisdom in a way that will help them see more of a clear future. It's like my crystal ball is clear, it's not crystal clear, but I want to help them be able to see some kind of a vision of how they can move from where they are to where they would like to be, because I really believe that everybody deserves to live a quality life. And I believe that if, going back to the movie A Knight's Tale, everybody can change their stars. It doesn't matter where they are, where they start or where they are now. The key is the direction they're headed and where they choose to end up. Life is our choices and putting behind it the proper actions.
Life is our choices, putting behind the proper actions. I like that. That gives us a chance to understand that it's not destiny, but it's what we choose to make our tomorrow. What we do, how we do it, what we want tomorrow to look like is based on what we're doing today. There's so many things that are not given for tomorrow. There's a lot to tomorrow that's all up to us. The people we meet, the people we network with, which way we go, the steps we take, what we do, that can impact our tomorrow quite positively.
Yep. And the key, and we talked about relationships, and I can't remember if it was you or somebody else. They asked me the question, what is the most important piece of furniture that you have in your house? And I didn't put it together, but he said the mirror. Because if you look in the mirror, everything begins with you. We've got the
Beautifully
power to make
said.
whatever change is necessary. There's an art as it relates to creating the right life, to developing the right relationships. Are you aware? Yeah, what are you doing to attract the right people? Releasing the negative things, the R, you can come up with in the transformation or transition of getting from where you are to where you want to be.
That is so good. And we should write that on our mirror in the bathroom, whatever mirror we look into every day. What is our greatest piece, what's the most valuable piece of furniture we have? And that is our mirror, like you said. And to think when we look in it, what do we see? What are we seeing when we look in that mirror?
Yep. If there's an old saying I remember, if it is to be, it's up to me. We've got the ability, the key about responsibility, it's the ability to respond to the situations and circumstances that come up. And we've got the ability to create whatever kind of life that we want. And you don't want to be at the end of your life saying, I wish I would have, or whatever. Might as well, what changed my life is listening to Wayne Dyer, How to Be a No Limit Person. We've got the ability to create whatever we want to create, but it's up to you to do it.
It's up to you to make that next step. Absolutely every time. That's so true. And I talk to people about that many times. They've always talked about getting down to on their knees to pray and whatever religion, whatever you might be, but you've got to get up off your knees to make the prayer come to action. And that's what sometimes we don't think. And as you mentioned, it's up to me. If we want it to change, what I like to say, change is short term, improvements long term. If you want to improve, got to get up. You've got to make that growth happen. It's the seed doesn't grow on its own. You've got to water it. You've got to tend to that seed and help it be able to grow. And as I talk about that, don't put you on the spot, but you've got one that you talk about the 8 P's of a prosperous life. Did you talk about why are they important? Why are those P's important?
Well, first of all, let's take a look at why eight. And eight, is according to the Chinese, is a very prosperous number. It's a Fibonacci number. You flip eight on its side, it's a sign for infinite. So, just real quickly, the purpose, what are you passionate about? Perception, because in relationships, the other person's perception is their reality. It's understanding the other person's perception. Jim Rohn used to say promise and price, how you position yourself, you know, again, it's just a way to remember. I mean, the point is things are a choice. And with understanding the APs and focus on where you want to end up was living a life that makes a difference, a prosperous life, whatever that means to you.
Hmm? That's true. The prosperous life, and I think the first one of the P's was purpose, right?
Yep.
Having a clear reason. And again, if you don't mind going through these, because in that purpose, you talk about the why. And I think that's so important. We've seen the books on the why, but as you talk about your purpose in life and why you're doing what you're doing, and we all need to think about that.
Yes. And then are you passionate about it? I mean, it's like you asked me what keeps me motivated today. It's just knowing that everything I'm doing is adding up to knowing that at the end of my life, I've lived a life of meaning based on not about myself, but being passionate about what it is that you're doing. Um, you know, the next one after passion, perception, because everything is about your relationships. And so if you're going to develop meaningful relationships, there's communicating what you say and what the other person receives, and you got to make sure that those line up with one another. Another one of the P's is positioning, how you position yourself. When I started off, and one of the books I read was Positioning Battle for Your Mind, 7 Up, when it was, going in the Cola War, how it positioned himself against the Coca-Cola, the Uncola, a variety of different examples of that. Promise and price, priority, you alluded to the fact of you prioritize, do you prioritize your time? What Jim said about promise and price, I believed that, going back to what he said, if you work harder on your, if you work hard at your job, you'll make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you make a fortune. Going back to the promise and price, prioritize your time, procrastination. But there's a lot of different P's that you could choose from. Um, I don't even necessarily remember all 8 of them,
Right.
so.
And yeah, I remember a few of them because of your teachings. It's been great. But one of them, I think it was the sheet that I saw. The last one was personal growth. And that was what I focus on so much is continuous learning. I
Yep.
do it through work and they call it continuous process improvement. But to take what we know and to continue building, and so much of what we've talked about today, Robert, that continuous growth, that continual learning, getting out of that learning from yesterday and take what we've learned on a day-to-day basis and put it into a better tomorrow. That continuous growth, personal growth is valuable to us in so many ways.
Definitely the compound effect, you know, the,
Compound effect.
yeah, obviously as you consistently build upon the personal growth, which, that was the example I was giving you about the Coca-Cola and the water. I knew that for things to change, I had to make the necessary changes to create the results that I expected. And my belief systems were there. I knew that if other people could do it, I could do it. I just had to plug into the information, follow it up with the right actions, stay focused on my vision, have clarity in my intention, and just make it work. And I mean, even today, even though I don't have to, but I'm consistently in a state of action. I mean, I know my numbers. I do approximately 40 hours of networking events a month. That nets me 81 ones. be it referrals or people I meet through networking. And again, people look at those numbers and say, that's a lot of hours. But if you look at it, 4 1/3 work weeks in a month times a 40-hour work week, that's like 170 some hours in a, if you're working that amount, what I just described to you is only 80 hours. It's only 50%. So a lot of
That's
it's
true.
understanding your numbers as it relates to, yeah.
It is. You talk about helping others succeed first. And I so appreciate that. Again, how you help others. Why is that approach so powerful? Helping others succeed first.
Uh, I learned that in network marketing, because it was based on geometric progression. Obviously, there's one part of network marketing is attracting people, but the business model is based on helping other people, but it's carried on beyond network marketing or multi-level marketing. And I love the acronym of MLM, which is making life meaningful. But that's a business model that the only way you succeed is helping other people. And I've taken it from there to where I am today. And my whole, what I've learned works is showing up. And I think I originally learned it from Robert Cialdini's book, Influence. He talks about the 6 key influential factors in the law of reciprocity. I want to show up to be of value up front and leave that door open and develop some kind of systematic approach. But I don't want, I like to sell without selling. As far back as I can remember, I've been told I could sell to Eskimos. Now, I've never tried. I believe I could, but they don't need it. But the point is, if you show up and focus on being of value to other people, you know that you left the relationship, the experience that they had with you, because it was all centered on them, not about myself. So,
I like what you're saying, and I will always continue to listen to you because you bring so much forward. But you have that help me, help others in personal development, helping others develop, and the role of personal development and how that works. And how did you use that in your own business success?
well, one of the things I learned early on is you want to create interdependent, not codependent relationships. I would guide people to the information, and I use that as a barometer because, and Jim Rohn said it in a different way. He said, 3% of the people have a library card. How much
Yeah,
does a library card cost? They're free.
free.
I can guide somebody, and it's a way of testing. The key in marketing is everything's a test. And so if I tell somebody or suggest to somebody they go out and listen to, for example, Jim Rohn, Take Charge of Your Life series, they can get it on YouTube for free. And if they come back and, or the next time we have a conversation, I might say to them, what did you think of the cassette Jim Rohn, of Jim Rohn's series or whatever one it might be? And they said, I didn't even listen to it. That's a sign, and most
It's a big
people,
sign.
yeah, they miss the signs, and I'm always looking for the signs. Question I quite often will ask people is I say, what color are yield signs? And most people say they're yellow, and they're not. They're red and white. And how many of them have you driven by? But most people are missing the signs. So I guide people to the information, and if they're not even willing to pick up that book or listen to that cassette or CD on YouTube, it shows me they're not serious or committed about changing their life.
That is so big. That and so true in what you're saying about how to make that work. And we have about 6 minutes left. We have plenty of time, but I'd like to check with you. People, what is one step that someone can take today to start building a better support system for themselves?
Well, figure out, the system as it relates to whatever they're doing. I think systems are so important, and that's part of where I started to incorporate what Tom Gay's got in Engage Pro. It's recognizing if you recognizing the results as it relates to your actions. Like I told you the amount of numbers I did with the one-on-ones, but most people, even though I left the door open, weren't getting back to me. So you've got to sit back and ask yourself the question, what should I maybe do to refine the things I'm doing? And so I change my calendar. Um, I've got it set up so that, if they don't get back to me, then I put them on my email list that is predominantly value driven, not sitting back just trying to pitch them. But for example, we've covered some great information here, and I'm going to want people to listen to this podcast. So I'm going to, send the link to the people, and the people that are going to listen to it, ultimately, again, it's driven with quality information. So, a lot of it goes back to the choices we make, choose to make the changes necessary. An old saying that I remember, a friend of mine said, five simple but profound words. If nothing changes, nothing changes. You know, there's the world is at your fingertips. I believe, and I've said this from stage many times, I believe it's easier to become wealthy today, whatever that might mean to you, than any other time in history with the technology, AI. I mean, I think about when I started with the in-person networking. It's much more time effective today to meet new people online. It's like you can go from one to the next, and it's just, I'm, you know, recognize what's going on and take action.
And that's so true with that. The last two words there, take action. Because too many
Yep.
people are not taking it to that next level to do something. They're expecting something to happen for them. It's so crazy in so many ways. All right, we have about 3 minutes. First off, again, Robert, thank you so much for being here. What you bring forward, the insights that you share with us are so powerful and so strong. What you do with Tom Gay, I think as you mentioned, Tom Tom Gay Gay is great, and I think the networking the two of you have put together and working through Tom is excellent as well. If someone wants to get a hold of you, they've been intrigued by you today, like I have. How can they get a hold of you?
The Either the easiest two ways, they can send me an email and let me know that you heard me here, which is just my last name, butwin@gmail.com. Just Butwin @gmail.com. If they want to set up a time on my calendar, it's Calendly, CALENDLY.com / my last name, Butwin. Again, my name's Robert Butwin. What I really want you to remember is when you connect with Robert, you do nothing but win.
I like that. Dr. Roberts will do nothing but win. And I've seen that in the things that I do. The people that you've talked to, as you mentioned, we've been on several groups together, talked to some of the same people, and everyone around me that I've talked to about you is that way. They've done nothing but win because they know you. Robert, that's the same for me. And thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do and all that you share. I sincerely appreciate it.
Mark, it's been a pleasure, and I just hope that your listeners were able to gain some good insight and value.
I think they have, and there's something they're going to appreciate because what we're doing here is what my company does. It's about achieving unity, and we are achieving unity by harnessing that power of encouraging others, inspiring others, and including others as we take action to end any of the hate. And some people look at that, they don't like the word hate, but hate's a disconnection. So if you're looking at that disconnection, that anger or frustration that we must end, we must be able to end our prejudice because that is the way that we build better businesses. We build better lives and a much, much better world. And we can do that. Again, everybody, thank you to Robert Butwin. Please come back and see us. This podcast will be on YouTube in about 3 days. So please go out and check for it. Check for my name, Mark Entricken. Check for Robert Butwin. You can see this again. You can watch it over and over, and give us feedback. We would both love to hear from you because we are looking to see you again next week and the weeks to follow. So until then, thank you all. Cheers.
I got to run. I've got another one-on-one.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, take care, Mark. Thank you.
everybody. Thanks.